Yo, what's going on everybody? This is Saberwolf94 with a new deck profile to show you guys and expand it. I say new, but this is old at the same time. This is going to be Darkness Turbo, but replace the Darkrai EX from Breakpoint with this new Greninja and Zoroark GX tag team. So, this Pokemon essentially has the same attack, Dark Pulse, as Darkrai EX, only it is much, much stronger, starting at 30 plus 30, and then doing 30 more damage times the amount of Darkness energy as opposed to 20 times. So he's incredibly powerful. You need a lot less energy to get into play for this guy to be getting one-hit knockouts on the biggest Pokemon. And even though he's going to give 3 prizes, the risk is definitely worth it. Get a lot of energies, 250 HP. You know, the bottom stats are the same. Psychic resistance, they double. Retreat shouldn't matter much in this deck because we run our Darkrai for free retreat. But this is essentially what the deck is going to be. Now, my version, I don't run any Shaymins, so like I've said in the title, this is a no Shaymin version. It is going to be very fast. It's still going to be turbo. Not as turbo as when you run a bunch of Shaymins and the Skyfield. This version that I'm running gives me a little bit more control. We want to get Darkness energies in a few different ways. I run some certain things that maybe other builds do not run. But let's go ahead and go through the deck. The main Pokemon, of course, are going to be Greninja Zoroark GX. You want to power up this Pokemon. Then we have our Darkrai EX, this one from Dark Explorers, the old one, the original one, you could say. This Pokemon is fantastic still with Dark Cloak. It's going to give you that free retreat around the board as long as you have Darkness energies around. So I really value this Pokemon. Just running one is not enough for me. I always want to have this guy around. I don't want him to, be prized, then I don't have it, or if it dies, I don't have another one. So I run 2 copies as opposed to just one. His attack, of course, isn't as good as what it used to be, but it's still respectable, doing 90 damage and 30 damage to an opponent's bench Pokemon. You never know when it can be handy. It's not out of the question to power up this Pokemon and attack with it too, depending on the game state. So 2 Darkrai EX, very important. And then we have our Darkrai GX, double of this guy. So in the past, I've tried this deck with 3, but it's very annoying when this guy ends up in the active position. So 2, I believe, is the right number. 1 might be too little. 3 might be too much, but it just really depends. It depends on if you're running Skyfield. It depends on a lot of things. 2 is the correct number for this deck. With Restoration or Revival, how it was originally called, you want to discard this guy in the discard pile, get him back, get a Darkness energy along with him. Its Dark Cleave attack is solid, but the real attack you want to use with this guy and your GX attack is reserved for is Dead End GX. You want to reserve your GX attack on this guy. It's a very strong GX attack. You essentially get a one-hit knockout no matter what, as long as the opponent Pokemon is affected by a special condition. So we run 2 Hypnotoxic Laser for this reason. If you gotta play 1 and just to do a little bit of damage, it's okay, as long as you know you have 1 left so you can use the GX attack. So this is why I go with 2 and not just 1. But this is a very good combination. Of course, you need the laser to make it work, but getting any knockout on, any Pokemon, even if they have like 300 HP, Wailord, stage 2 GX, whatever, it's just an incredible effect. Easy to pull off. So this is why this guy is in here as well. Next up, we got some regular basic Pokemon, and we're gonna go with the 1 Darkrai Prism here. So this is one of the things that I run that some of the Darkrai Turbo decks with Shaymins do not run. I want to get this guy down and get his effect off, attach 2 Darkness energy from my hand to it. So very good. Since it's a Prism Pokemon, its HP is very good, bottom stats are solid, and Abyssal Sleep, you never know when this attack can come in handy. You do 124-4, so it's not the greatest damage output, but your opponent has to flip 2 coins instead of 1 to wake up from sleep you're going to inflict. So with any luck, according to odds, your opponent should be stuck. They should be stuck for at least a turn or 2, and if they can't get out of the active position, switch or something, then it gives you a free turn. So it's a good attacker too. in emergencies. And then the other darkness Pokemon, just regular basic, I still want to run this Evoltal from the original X and Y set. This Pokemon is still very good. Stats are very good. It gives you a little bit of variety, being weak to lightning as opposed to fighting, and having that fighting resistance. And with Oblivion Wing, you can do 30 damage for 1 and grab darkness energies. So what usually you want to use this Pokemon for is, if you're gonna play either first or second, you probably won't be able to have like millions of darkness energy by your first turn. That's how this deck is. Remember, no Shaymins, but being able to attack with this Pokemon, uh, put some pressure and get a darkness energy. You know, if this guy manages to live, and then you retreat him with Darkrai, and then you start to attack with your big guy, you know, it's pretty good. So a couple of these are very handy. Since it's just a one prize attacker too, there's many situations where he can be handy. You can just use him against things like Night March. You can use him against other decks that want to use one prize Pokemon. Darkness Blade is also a solid attack, doing 100 for 3. So just an excellent Pokemon all around. I still want to run this guy. If you want to drop, you know, one and just run one, that's up to you. But I like two. And then the last Pokemon, the 10th basic Pokemon that's only in here for pure support, Tapu Lele GX. One of this guy. I run a few Ultra Balls in this deck, and this is essentially a supporter. So Tapu Lele GX is very good. It's worth it to run a Pokemon like this as opposed to something like Jirachi in this deck, because we don't really want to switch around all the time, run a bunch of switches when we have Darkrai. And you want to be on the offense all the time with this deck. Like, even if you're not completely ready, we can use this Evoltal apply pressure. We have a bunch of ways to boost our damage here, from the stadiums, from the tools. So Tapu Lele GX is the right support Pokemon in here. And these are all the Pokemon. Just 10 Pokemon, as you guys can see. This deck is really quite simple. It's quite fast. Even without the Shaymins, you just want to get your great Pokemon out, give you all these sorts of great effects, and then through fast means, get Darkness Energy into play. You don't run any Stage 2 Pokemon, you don't run any Stage 1 Pokemon. It's just energy acceleration through, you know, items and abilities like Darkrai Prism, Darkrai GX, all this good stuff, even Evoltal. So this is how the deck runs. Because of this, we have a lot of space for a lot of trainers, and even go with 13 darkness energies. Now, at the same time, do keep in mind that if you go up against, like, let's say Jolteon EX, and they build up that attack, and they start attacking, you don't have any outs. This deck is all about speed, and I really don't want to include text like Stage 1 attackers or some Pokemon that will attack through effects, through safeguard Pokemon. But it is what it is. It's up to you. If you want to include maybe Zoroark or Umbreon or whatever. Anyways. Now the Trainer Skeleton, a very big Trainer Skeleton. And I've made a few changes since the last Darkrai Turbo deck, you could say. The main one is going to be this Battle Compressor. So this card is more suitable for the Shaymin Turbo decks, and you know, those kinds of decks where you want to dump supporters, you run a max amount of VS Seekers, all that stuff. But even in this deck of mine, it's an important card to have. It's essentially like a triple Foolish Burial if you're familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh! Just send cards in the discard pile. And what you always want to send with this guy is the Darkrai GXs and Darkness Energies. Depending on what you have in hand, what you have going on, maybe you'll send 2 Darkrai GXs, 1 Darkness Energy. Maybe you'll send out 1 Darkrai GX, 2 Darkness Energy. Or you can even send out a supporter and get it with VS Seeker. You can send like a Lysander, get it instantly back. Guzma, just a particular supporter you want. All those combos. I don't want to overrun it, you know, just have too many of these, because once you get those Darkrai GXs in there, you don't need them. So one battle compressor, just one copy is enough for me. Okay, the ace pick of choice is of course going to be computer search, discard outlet, and get anything. It's the best ace pick to run in a deck like this. The second best would be dowsing machine if you want to go with that. But I run computer search for maximizing consistency, all that important. Speed and consistency in this deck. Okay, next up we got some balls to search out a basic Pokemon. One of the nest balls, this is your simple ball to get anybody down. You want to get anybody besides Darkrai GX, Tapu Lele, and the Darkrai Prism so that you don't lose their effects. Anybody else though is fair game. And then we got two Ultra Balls, another discard outlet, Tapu Lele Fetcher, and get any Pokemon once again is very useful. And they're going to go with nicely with our double Professor's Letters here. Uh, use these, get your Darkness Energy into play. You can instantly put them on Darkrai Prism when you play this down. You can dump them for Ultra Ball, set up your Darkrai GX, even discard Darkrai GX with Ultra Ball and set up your discard pile that way. Just so many different combos you can make with the Professor's Letter, getting those Darkness Energy in hand and discarding them. It is for this reason that I'm only running one Max Elixir here. This card is very good, of course, and it is the basis of most of the Darkrai Turbo decks and Turbo decks out there. But because it's a chance effect, I'm always iffy on chance effects. I just hate when I gotta miss it. So I'll only run one. This is why I have a big 13 Darkness Energy Skeleton too. Maximize my chances of not missing it. You know, if I see this and I haven't used any letters yet. And like I've said, we want to build up our Darkness Energy through Darkrai Prism, Darkrai GX, maybe use even Yveltal too. And we still have the 4 Dark Patch to grab Darkness Energies that way. So it's not like this deck doesn't have ways to be super quick grabbing those Darkness Energies, you know? Maybe I'm sacrificing a few Max Elixirs, and the Shaymins, like I've said, the turbo aspect kind of goes down a bit, but I'd rather have some certain tech options and just have more control over what I'm going to be doing. Not just rely on the turbo Shaymins and maybe it falls apart or maybe it clogs, all this stuff. Anyways, I hope I'm making sense here. We have to run the one Trainer's Mail, just a good Trainer Fetcher, very nice. And the techs, one Field Blower and one Startling Megaphone. With a turbo deck, you probably just run one of these, one Field Blower, and then just run something else. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. Gotta run one Switch and one Float Stone. I still want to run these switching, just generic switching options, just in case we can't use Darkrai, we lose our ability, or just something happens. It's nice to have these options, just 2 of them. It's not too bad. And then I've got the VS Seekers, you gotta run them. Very good, 2 VS Seekers and 1 Stretcher. You never know what we can recycle. And what's left? I guess the tools are left, the offensive tools. And I run 1 of each. We've got 1 Muscle Band. This is the generic boost damage and anything. 1 of these Fighting Fury Belts. Increase our HP on our Tag Team GXs. Can be handy. This is very good on Yveltal too. And 1 Choice Band when I just want that complete extra damage for the GXs and EXs. This one is handy too. So depending on the situation, I decided to run all 3 different ones. Okay, and then the stadiums. Stadiums are 1 Reverse Valley and 1 Devart Field. So these essentially boost Darkness, our Dark Pokemon's offense, do 10 more damage. It's good for cheap attackers like Yveltal, and of course it's going to boost everybody's attack. For example, this Darkrai, if you have like a Choice Band on and you've got that Stadium out, you can do 170. So that's enough to knock out certain EX and GX Pokemon in 1 shot. So that little 10 damage does matter. Now, if I had the Darkness Prism Stadium, I would probably run that because it's just too good. But I don't have it. If you have that, you might want to drop Reverse Valley or Devoured Field and then put the other one in. So just mentioning that, of course, the Prism Stadium is the best out of these 2. Mitigating your opponent's prize take is super broken. And now for the supporters. Pretty typical. You gotta run the 1 Lily in a deck like this, since we can With any luck, grab it with Tapu Lele, and we have a bunch of discard outlets. Getting that Lily turn 1 should fetch us a lot of cards. Just a solid draw until you have 6 if you see it later. Great supporter either way. One chorus, since this is expanded. This supporter, not Pokemon, is very good when both players have a lot of Pokemon down. And then the typical things, the triple Juniper, draw 7, very good, and it's also a very good discard outlet. I love using Juniper when I have a bunch of Darkness Energy and Darkrai GX in hand. It's just great. We got 2 Cynthia and 1 N, just one of this guy. We've got the VS Seekers. And 1 Skylar, you never know what you're going to grab. Maybe you want a Hypnotoxic Laser, maybe you want a tool, maybe you want a Stadium Dark Patch, so many different things. This Skylar can come in handy. So one of her is good too. So this is the deck, guys. Now, just a few extra notes to make. This deck, I've already mentioned this, is not going to be as extreme, mega fast turbo as if you run Shaymins, you max out the Ultra Balls, you play the Skyfield. But like I've said, it's just it's player preference. This is how I want to run it. I don't want to run the Shaymins. I don't want to run the Skyfield. I want to run some more control options, have a little bit of variety, and once you do get rolling, you have more benefits than when your opponent has those Shaymins and they can give out easy prizes and shit. The other thing is that both this deck and the Shaymin versions, any sort of version with this deck is going to have a lot of bad starters. Darkrai GX is a bad starter. Of course, Tapu Lele, if it gets stuck there, is not a good starter. Darkrai Prism is a bad starter. Really, your best starters in this deck are the Greninja Zoroark GX, Eviltal, and perhaps, at least with Darkrai X, you can move them out of the way. Just put a Darkness Energy. I mean, you can put a Darkness Energy and move anybody out of the way, but Darkrai GX, Darkrai Prism, Lele, they're not great starters. And if you run like all of the Shaymins and that sort of engine, you've got those bad starters too. So one of the things. The second thing is that this deck, of course, it's going to have trouble against fighting, but because it's super fast, if you get enough Darkness Energy into play, you can get one-hit knockouts on even those fighting Pokemon. And it's just a very good expanded deck in general. It's super popular. Any version of this deck, it's good for a reason. With all of the options, is one of the best. It's very fast, very aggressive, very unforgiving. If your opponent messes up a little bit, if they get a little bit of a slow start and you get rolling, you're going to completely destroy them. Almost unfair when you think about it. But yeah. And basically, that's it. Of course, like I've said, the other problem, at least for my version, is the safeguard Pokemon. You have your outs against Hoopa and Alolan Ninetales GX, but you don't have an out against Jolteon EX, so keep that in mind. Or Pyroar, that too. And against Item Lock, you're probably going to have some issues if they get the Item Lock going, because this deck is super heavy on items. Okay, so this is the deck, guys. I hope I didn't ramble too much, went all over the place, and this deck makes a lot of sense. It's quite simple when you think about it. Get your Darkness Pokemon, get your Darkness Energy through the Dark Patch, dump them, get them back with Dark Patch, get them with Max Elixir, get them with Darkrai GX, play down your Darkrai Prism, get the Darkness Energies on. It really is quite simple. And if you don't have any Shaymins, this should be a very solid list for you to try out. No Shaymin Darkrai Turbo deck. I'm going to show you guys matches, of course, to prove to you guys that this deck isn't just for a show. When you don't run Shaymins, you can still make it be very successful. You guys are going to see. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys subscribe, leave a like, and share this video with your friends. My channel is an excellent hub for all things TCG. And I'll see you on the matches. Thank you guys for watching. Let's say...